Bring us in the room for this opportunity today. Who was a bigger hit, Trump or Musk?
A little question that was President Donald Trump. There was a great degree of enthusiasm. I think, meeting that enthusiasm in the room has been the economic rebound, and we certainly see that across the country. But without question, there's unity in the House Republican Conference, and that unity, in partnership with Senator Thune, now as Majority Leader, really sets up the environment for President Trump to deliver not only on his mandate, but on his vision to make this country great again.
Well, before the next Congress takes its seats, Congressman, there is this Congress to finish up in this lame duck session. Did he express what he would like to see accomplished before he takes the oath of office in January?
He was very specific about assembling his cabinet. I will tell you, it was more forward-thinking than the next 30 or 40 days. I mean, quite frankly, with an incoming Republican majority in the Senate, it benefits the president to obviously put bigger questions into that Congress, right? Because again, the American people spoke overwhelmingly. They embrace the America First agenda. They support President Trump with now an historic victory, and frankly, a unified government. Senate, House, and White House really stands to deliver on efficiencies. And I will tell you this, he spent a lot of time talking about efficiency in government. Obviously the big ticket items, border security, confronting and strengthening America's role across the globe, but also looking internally and making this government function again, respect taxpayers, and deliver on greater efficiency, and his vision for making sure that the federal government actually do its job well.
Well, Congressman, we've got a funding deadline coming up on December 20th. There's some reporting out there today that there's a desire by some Republicans, some pro-Trump Republicans, to extend funding with a stopgap through September. Take it off his plate, let him work on the rest of the agenda. I'm assuming the Freedom Caucus wouldn't stand for that. Where do you stand on that matter, and what's a more likely scenario if that's not the case?
Well, listen, we're at the point now where we're going to start very early next year in appropriations discussions for 25 and 26. It does make sense to extend the current CR later in the year, allow the president to assemble the cabinet, get organized. We're going to have to deal with a whole host of issues. They will, of course, reconciliation, confronting, obviously, international questions. And I just think the setting forth the process to get the 25-26 appropriation structure in place, really lends itself simply to extending the CR later into next year. It likely makes sense. It'll have some opposition, certainly. And frankly, the two houses are going to respond to what the president really hopes to achieve. But we have this moment. I mean, listen, the president is focused on delivering results. And I think that means everything from getting FEMA to focus on responding effectively to Americans to making sure our transportation infrastructure actually is safe and works. And so there's going to be a hefty agenda moving forward. CR extension later in the year seems to make the most sense. Yeah.
Later being September, or are you in the camp to get this done through March?
Oh, I mean, listen, I won't be returning next year, but I think later in the year is the better option. It's going to be if we try to crunch this into the first quarter of next year, there's just too much to have to achieve in that very short window of opportunity. We don't want to compound or complicate the president's agenda. And he has a broad, bold agenda that was met with a national mandate.
Well, Congressman, you certainly won't be there in January, but I do wonder if you may have a return to the House in your sights. Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, whose district is very close to yours in the state of New York, has been tapped to be ambassador to the UN. Assuming she gets confirmed, that's a seat up for grabs. Would you go for it?
I've said this. I'm flattered. A good number of people in that district have reached out to me. I know upstate New York pretty well. I ran for governor in 2018 and frankly gave voice to a lot of these communities. This has been an honor of a lifetime these last 2 years. They just finished counting votes in my race yesterday. My hope and my goal is to remain active in representing in some capacity and serving in some capacity the people of upstate New York. And so at this point, we'll see how that plays out. But I'm very, very much interested in furthering the president's agenda, ensuring that America meets this moment, and that the people of upstate New York have an aggressive fighter on their behalf.
Sounds like you might have plans. Congressman, they did just finish counting the votes in your race yesterday, and I think it's worth noting, as we saw Donald Trump return to the White House today, with Joe Biden, who is clearly trying to express the importance of continuity of government here and the peaceful transfer of power, that you immediately conceded your race. You had some very nice things, in fact, to say about Democrat Josh Riley, who won the election, congratulating him early on. Is that a model for your colleagues to follow?
Listen, I honor the results and do wish him well. We're not enemies, we're opponents. And I do think even as President Trump earlier met with President Biden, there was a camaraderie and an acknowledgement that the transition of power should move seamlessly and that there needs to be a respect for the great democratic process. And by the way, again, America delivered an historic win for the president, and the president in return seeks to fulfill that mandate. And that means serving everybody. And I think we heard that, I certainly know we heard that in conference today. But I respect the outcome of the election. Listen, I was at the receiving end of a brutalized and brutal campaign. They outspent us by about $8.5 million. But the results are the results. We respect them. We move forward. And I will tell you, though, I remain committed to ensuring both the success of the House Republican Conference, the success of President Donald Trump and his administration, and the goal of truly making this country as great as it can be and as it ought to be, but also making sure the people of upstate New York are well represented and respected.
Well, finally, Congressman, as we consider the conference, you obviously have been operating in what has been a thin majority for the last 2 years. And while the majority does look like it will be retained, once again, the margin could be very tight. How would you advise your colleagues to avoid the mistakes of the last 2 years in the next two and remaining cohesive?
Well, we have the benefit of now having a Republican majority in the Senate and, of course, President Trump's election. So there's going to be a real push to stay united. The president made that clear in conference in the meeting we had today. But there's going to be a push to stay united. I think that pressure and the leadership that the president will provide in that regard will keep some from causing some degree of chaos. But yes, the speaker is well aware, and I've got nothing but admiration for Mike Johnson and the leadership team, in particular as Elise Stefanik leaves. Obviously, her leadership in conference has been very, very useful and effective. But again, I think the speaker understands that there's going to have to be a lot of coalition building and consensus molding. Having the president lean in and Senator Thune and the majority in the Senate makes that a little bit easier. But we're a diverse conference. You know that. You've seen it on full display. It's just my advice. My advice is work hard to mold consensus. Listen to voices, both that which agree with you and that which disagree, and to my colleagues throughout the House Republican Conference, respect the fact that Republicans were given a mandate to deliver a safer country, a more secure nation, and a stronger economy.